Our relationship with the Maisels, the Klitzner family and the Maisels family goes back many, many years, given that the rabbi was the rabbi of Zichrono Livracha, Rabbi Maisels, was the rabbi in Bloemfontein. And when my dad got to Velkom, he was there already when my dad got to Velkom as the reverend of the community in about 1969, 1970. I'm open to correction, but was there and thereabouts. Well, my father, I suppose, did the right thing, and he phoned up Rabbi Maisels in Bloemfontein to introduce himself as the new reverend in Velkom. And when he did so, Rabbi Maisels wasn't available, but he spoke to Rebbitzin Maisels. And at the end of the conversation, he obviously had introduced himself, and he introduced himself as Reverend Klitzner. Well, the story is told and often repeated by the late Rabbi Maisels that Rebbitzin Maisels could not understand how a reverend had phoned her of a Jewish community. Where she came from in America, reverends were of the Methodist or the Presbyterian nature and church, and she would never be able to understand that Reverend Klitzner of the Welcome Hebrew congregation had actually phoned. And this was a story that Rabbi Maisels told very, very often. So the relationship between our families was really strong. In fact, when my parents retired from Velkom, it coincided with their golden wedding anniversary, and the Kehillah gave my parents a huge farewell dinner, and Rabbi Maisels was flown up from Cape Town to be the guest speaker on the evening. Rabbi Maisels, as we all know, was an unbelievable Leiner, rabbi, moil, shochet, dayan of the Beth Din, a kashrut, extreme authority, and a sofer. And the late rabbi always, but more importantly, he was an absolute and complete mensch. And that to me portrays every human being, Jewish human being particularly, but every human being. And that all that he was, all the titles I accredited him to, and everybody has alluded to over the last month, the fact is that he was an absolute mensch. His kindness was superb. He was a shining example of the tripod that the world stands on. Gemilut Chasadim, Avodah, and Masim Toivim. But particularly, Gemilut Chasadim, and I quote the example of when my wife was running the Can project, and she once met with Rabbi Maisels, and she told Rabbi Maisels that she just couldn't get honey anywhere, kosher honey, whichever honey she needed. And he lifted his left eye to the top corner of the eye, as he so often did. And a week later, 2 boxes, absolutely 24 bottles of honey arrived at our door, and he'd organized it all. But ladies and gentlemen, friends, our rabbis, just like us, are just normal human beings, like all of us. And so the rabbi also had a bit of a mischievous twinkle in his eye, if I might call it that. And for example, I very often was the gabbai on the bimah when the rabbi was laying. And he would call up somebody, and the person would be known to him to be somebody who, when it got to the fellow's mishaberach, the blessings of all the people that the fellow wanted to do, it was going to be a long and drawn out. And he'd sort of mumble under his beard to me, this could go on for 10 minutes. And to me, that was always very, very amusing, because that was Rabbi Maisels over and over again. Whenever he had to talk, speak, sermonize, he never enjoyed that, for those of you who thought he did. He really didn't enjoy it. His sermons to bar mitzvah boys were absolutely superb, always. They were unfailing. But in general terms, if, for example, at the Kiddush Brocha, he was asked unexpectedly to speak, he'd mumble under his beard again, I wish they'd leave me alone. Sorry, that's my dog. Sorry, forgive me for a moment. The majority of the years that Rav Maisel, Zichrono Livracha, was our rabbi, he would never, ever allow us on a Shabbos morning at the Kiddush Brocha to make motzi. He wouldn't allow us to make motzi on the basis that learning out of Torah, that there was a saying in the Birkat Hamazon that particularly was out of Torah, and he was very, very frightened always. He didn't believe that people would make motzi and then do the benching afterwards, which was sacrilege and not right by him. So one Pesach, we had the ladies put out a lot of matzah for us. He somehow got an oven, and he absolutely collected all the matzah and he hid it away. We could not make a motzi whether we liked it or not, because firstly, the guys felt there was smoked salmon, there was no kichel at the time, and there was no matzah to eat the smoked salmon with. A year later, same story happened. We all felt, we need to eat our smoked salmon with some matzah. We knew there was matzah from the previous year, but what he had done with it? Well, we found it hidden away under the Oren Kodesh, and we took it to the brocha room, and we made the ladies put it out. And the rabbi, upset as he was, he accepted it. From then on, we made motzi, we made brocha, and we benched, and we did everything as he wanted us to do it. Forgive me for a moment. Another inspiring aspect of Rabbi Mesel's was obviously his unstinting kashrut knowledge. He absolutely adored and was so learned in anything that was related to kashrut, to the extent that every, what do we call it, the Sudas Lishit, when he had to say his few words after we had sung our songs, he would talk words of kashrut, always. And a particular liking of his was the kingklip fish, because whether, and you must forgive me now, because I'm sure whether the debate was there were no fins or there were no scales, I can't quite recall. But he discussed this ad infinitum with ourselves. And every week it was going to be a topic of kashrut and particularly fish in this regard. So much so that the guys eventually would say, before we started and sat down to the Sudah, they would say, which fish tonight? It was a question that was asked us. Folks, these were just some of the funnier moments that we shared with Rabbi Mesel's, but his kindness, his goodness, his untold kindness to all of us and to the Kehillah, to the larger Kehillah of Cape Town, to the Drum Africa, to South Africa, to the world at large, will go as sustenance, as sustaining ourselves forevermore of blessed memory of himself. And may we all always remember him being sustained in similar way, more particularly his family so, and us joining them always forevermore. Amen, amen.